let me just tell you, if you don't want to make a change, don't look, because you can't unhear and you can't unsee some of the things that you will as you do your due diligence. I've seen situations escalate very quickly, innocent situations where all of a sudden you're worried about being fired. I loved that organization, and it hurt. I mean, I'll just be straight up with you. Some tears were shed for quite some time ahead of that decision. But the more I learned, and especially the more I was involved in some of those conversations at a leadership level, I couldn't escape the reality of what it was. Culture. You hear the word culture used so much. But I will tell you that there's culture in other places. I was worried that I wouldn't find the culture I was looking for. I was the relationships and the willingness to help. And then I go to a national meeting and I'm blown away that it feels more authentic, feels more genuine. That was quite an eye-opening experience.
I think it's important to know, to just tell the audience as well that, it's not the Wild West out there on the independent channel.
I was blown away. People were excited for us, cheering us on. People were proud. They took pride that they were a part of this, and they were happy for us.
Looking back, do you think there's anything that you did like prior to your move that helped you have a more successful transition than others? Can you talk about what your assets were prior to your firm, what they looked like after your transition, and what they're at today? But there is a lot of purposeful misconceptions being put into communications to keep financial advisors scared of leaving, to keep them in their seats.
I spent 3 years pulling over this decision. Looking back, I wish I'd have done it sooner. I'm so glad I'm here. I've been blessed to move my business over and have control of my business now.
I guess my message to people who are currently employed at any wirehouse is that if you feel like it could be easier to do business somewhere else, if you feel like having more space would help you, enable you to be more successful, you're totally right. Don't let go of that feeling. That is my message. If something seems completely nonsensical and frustrating, and you get more of that than you get of help, let that thought fester, grow into that thought, allow it to inform your actions, allow it to energize your activities, because it's all totally true.
One of the things I used to say was my business, and he occasionally would jab at me just to try to get me to think different. He would say, "What do you mean when you say your business?" I said, "Well, my business." He says, "But you're an employee." And I said, "But it's my business." He goes, "Well, don't you mean their business?" He really wanted me to think.
There's plenty of great employee models out there to potentially consider, but I tell them, listen, no matter where you go, make sure that this move is the only one that you're competing for your clients.
I slid the keyboard away from me and I kind of just pushed back in my chair and leaned towards her and I said, "Why are you opening this account with me right now?" And she said, "Oh, it's easy. We trust you." And that was a moment. There was no going back from that moment in time. It was just, I couldn't unhear that.
There's no more exhausting place to be than in between stay and go for multiple years. Kicking tires a little bit, like working at two places at once. One that you're at right now and employed, and then what could be on the other side. I've done it myself in another role. It's the most exhausting place you can possibly be.
I don't really know what to say, except it's been kind of a rocket ship and we've just been holding on with both hands and enjoying the ride.
And going to Mike's point, when we did meet you, I'll never forget the first phone call we had. Getting off that phone call, I'm like, oh my God, like we actually have something here. We have a business, not only that had, enterprise value and was actually worth something, which
you get called, we get pinged by recruiters, LinkedIn. So you start getting these messages and, we were so happy there for so long. You don't even entertain the phone call. For a long time, we're kind of in our own bubble, right? Just focusing on growth and clients and how do we just continue to build? And then it's at some point say, hey, let's start working on our business, not necessarily in it. That's when we made the big shift. I wasn't really sure what independence meant, right? We're still figuring it out every day. But like you said, you're like, wow, am we just on our own island? But no, it's literally more part of a community because like you said, everyone is willing to help. And that's been the best piece of the whole move for us. And everyone would just say, like, why are you guys still there? Why are you guys still there? You know what? Sometimes you don't think that the grass is greener on the other side. And then funny enough, it wasn't really until we got connected with you through one of our wholesale partners that he really opened our eyes and said, I think your guys' business is growing pretty substantially, where you might want to look at the true independent route, and you just don't know what you don't know.
You know, Mike and I looked at each other and go, this is the place. We went to our home office visit down there in New Orleans, and
it's the day that you're resigning. Like, how did those conversations go with clients? You left this firm, you know, big brand name.
It just, things started to click for us, right? The marketing started to increase, the referrals started to increase. Our clients were like, oh, so now you own your own financial advisory firm. You know, they wanted to help us, they wanted to refer us.
And I definitely had heard other people say, when you actually make that move, if you do it, you will get more referrals, you'll get more business. Clients are more willing to help. And again, we've built the business off relationships. And you kind of hear these things like, is that really true? But it is 100% true. We have gotten more referrals, more introductions.
What questions do you think a financial advisor should be asking if they're listening to this podcast and, you know, thinking if, you know, an insurance-based firm is their long-term home?
I think the first question they have to ask themselves is, you know, are they doing the best thing for their client at the end of the day? Because at the end of the day, we all care about our clients in this business, right? And whether you work for an insurance broker dealer or a wirehouse or so on and so forth, people care about their clients. So I think our aha moment was just like, let's go see what else is out there. Let's actually go through the process like we did with you and uncover, like, let's truly understand. Because I think that's, and I'm sure you deal with this because you dealt with us, they just don't understand really what else is out there.
And most people that have talked to me would tell you I'm probably err on the side of being too candid.
He was the largest producing financial advisor that ever transitioned to independence from.
I thought I understood what the industry was about. When I left and I started exploring and doing a due diligence trip, it was mind-blowing, the little environment and ecosystem that I had been literally my entire life raised in. Things that I'd been told weren't allowed in the industry. Things that I'd been told that weren't possible to do, things that I'd been told just can't be done.
Yeah. And I mean, this is where, in my opinion, the light bulb goes off for financial advisors.
So you're taking me back to about the scariest month of my life right there. Those couple weeks leading up to it when you're just right at the edge of the cliff fixing to jump.
I was scared. I was very scared, to be honest. And then I just said, you know what? Just work hard. Just do the right thing. Good things will happen. Emotionally, I was overwhelmed. And I say that not, me 3 years ago listening to this, watching this, I would tell anybody who's been doing this 10, 15, 20 years, I sold myself short. I don't think it was anything special about me. I think any good advisor is going to experience that. You are going to be overwhelmed with, it's just humbling. The people that are proud of you, happy for you, and just poof, the floodgates open.
Consolidation being the trend, but it's why, right? Why is the consolidation and will the consolidation continue? You know, everyone asks me all the time, you know, where are we in this process? And I still think we're in other firms are having a difficult time competing, right? And so, you know, the old expression, if you can't beat them, join them. So if we look at what's underneath these firms, it's an older advisor base. The larger firms are bringing in younger advisors at a faster rate than some of these legacy, smaller, you know, boutiquier firms.
Yeah, I mean, I speak with a lot of financial advisors, obviously, that are considering making a move to another firm. And one of their biggest fears is...
You know, it really does come up all the time. And so then the question becomes, how do I defend against that, right? How do I prevent that from happening? Everyone is baffled by this, right? Because they have reshaped the landscape, right? And this creates a huge opportunity for them to monetize, right? Reduce their risk, get back to what they love of working with clients, and enhance the efficiencies. And we're going to get surprised by some new consolidation. I assure you of that. You know, you and I hear rumors all the time, and rumors are what they are. But
let's move on to number 3. I think this is my favorite trend of 2025. We've talked about in multiple podcasts,
you know, forcibly, candidly, because they were against the RIA space, but forcibly and aggressively were bashing and denigrating the RIA space, you know, while they were in those legacy roles. Then they retire from those roles, and now they're starting firms to try to pull advisors out. It's clearly the trend.
I also just think it's kind of a lesson, if you're still at a captive employee firm.
I think, there's some information that I think is kind of jaded, and some of the information I think is intentionally jaded.
You're also giving up paying for somebody else's black car service. You're also giving up paying for somebody else's helicopter from downtown to their place in the Hamptons. You're also giving up the corporate jets. You're also giving up equity research sales. I mean, yeah, there are a million things that you're no longer funding. It's really elegant in a way that the way the economics pan out in the independent space in terms of, to your point, Corey, the revenue stays with the advisor. The revenue stays with the firm, and that firm and that advisor make the decision about where they're going to spend the excess revenue to grow the business or to bolster the business or to hire new people or what have you. I mean, it all stays local.